With digitalization, a lot of what I've seen over the last 15, 20 years is that many sort of traditional products have become digitized, so to speak. There's more and more software, obviously, in innovation. A lot of industry that's maybe were sort of just very hardware focused in the past. A lot of the new intelligence really sits, in the software. I've seen that in many different types of industries. So, and one of the issues with that, obviously, from an IP perspective, is that it's not always obvious how you can control and protect software. I mean, it's from the classical IP perspective, with patents and so forth, which lends themselves very well, for very hardware and product, physical products. It's not as easy actually as with software. How do you actually protect and control it? Firstly, of course, because jurisdiction for protecting those, for example, with patents, differs between various kind of countries. So the law is quite different depending on where you are and how you want to protect it. I think that is really one of the key challenges for companies, how do you actually control it and protect it? So I think there is, for example, with the software industry, there's a tendency right now that people, more and more companies actually prefer, to use trade secrets rather than patents, for example, for IP. And then it might need other opportunities as well, to control this. For example, a lot of this data today, or a lot of the software is actually depending on data, which sort of underpins the whole kind of optimization, and the control of the software. And also data, is very different actually to protect from an IP perspective. So I think there is a lot of challenges for the business, to see, how you best control and protect your digitized inventions. Oh, there's definitely a big need, I think, to link business with IP. I think one of the key problems with IP professional teams, and if we call them, senior management business, is they don't necessarily talk the same languages. And of course, from a leadership perspective and business perspective, everything basically boils down to finance numbers. Unless you can prove that you are really bringing anything to the profit of the company and so forth, it's quite difficult actually to sort of support what you're doing. And that's one of the key difficulties for IP in general, to explain to management what the value of the IP that they create actually is. It's quite obvious, if you're selling IP and if you're licensing IP, then you have a revenue stream coming out of that, and you don't need actually to defend that. But if you don't, for example, like many companies have a defensive IP policy, it is a challenge really to explain to people, what the value of that is. And I think we haven't really become much better at it over the last years. I know there are a lot of initiatives, and this is something I sort of think about a lot actually, but more needs to be done, to prove the value of the IP that we sort of create within organizations.
And as a follow-up question, do you think that universities can facilitate the creation of these new capabilities? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think what it really needs to happen is that we need to find a means and a way and some measurements, to make sure, that we value things in the right way. Because I've been speaking about this at a number of different types of conferences, and seminars. The fact, that most of the value of today in companies resides within intangibles, and they don't really have a place, in finance reporting. I mean, if you go, to the classical cash flow and balance sheets and so forth, you don't really find any information about all these intangibles. So if universities, for example, could help out, coming up with some kind of framework, that everyone agrees on, both from a reporting perspective, but also from a business perspective, that would be amazing. It would be much, much easier to actually explain the value you're creating for the organization. Everything is about AI for the moment. It's all over the place, obviously. It will have a huge impact both on the technology per se, the way, for example, if I take Spotify as an example, the way we recommend content to users is very much based actually on AI functionality, machine learning and so forth. Generative AI, of course, is the latest, which is now the buzzword everywhere, and it's going to have a big, big impact. So we will see a lot of technology changing, but it will also change the professional IP people, I think. With generative AI in particular, which can produce, large text amounts and quite intelligent, Uh, Still with some errors, obviously. You can see that this is becoming much better. So I can assume, for example, if law firms, who make a living out of drafting and prosecuting patent applications, they will getting a lot of help, from AI to actually draft some of that. So that will change a lot. I'm pretty sure, on the other side, for example, from the PTO side's perspective, the ones, who's going to examine your patent application, if we're talking about patents in this case, probably true as for trademarks actually, and figures and all that kind of stuff. But on the receiving side, the people who are actually going to judge this invention or whatever it is, copyright, they're going to have much better, of course, search tools and so forth, and actually being able, to see what is new and so forth. So I think this is going to change things a lot actually, and we've just seen the beginning of it.